Okay. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is a Blue Jay for life.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back, everybody. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. Use code LOCKEDONMLB when you sign up on that account. Welcome, everybody. Toronto Blue Jays fans, rejoice. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is a Toronto Blue Jay for life. Carter, I'm going to get into a lot more. Go follow us, Braden 5 Wasco, Carter First 2 on Twitter as well. You can follow our big one, Locked On Jays. Carter, I'm getting a bunch of tweets and everything out right now, so take it from here. Explain the deal. Break it all down for the people. This will be our Monday episode for those of you who are here and tuning in, just because we just recorded our Monday episode. And this drops now. So welcome in, everybody. We're seeing the comments. No one cares, Bradley Reed. Well, that's okay. That's bold.
Yeah, I think you're going to find out that you're pretty wrong with that take, just based off everything that's going to go on with Toronto Blue Jays media, Toronto Blue Jays Twitter. Anything regarding the Toronto Blue Jays is going to be Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Whether people like the deal or hate the deal is another thing, but I think people are going to care about the biggest signing in Toronto Blue Jays history, the third biggest signing in MLB history. First baseman Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and the Toronto Blue Jays are in an agreement to a 14-year, $500 million contract extension pending a physical. Sources tell ESPN. This is from Jeff Passan. A monumental no deferral deal to keep the homegrown star in Toronto for the rest of his career. So you heard it right there. No deferrals in this deal. 14 years, $500 million, just under $37 million per year. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is going to be a Toronto Blue Jay for life. A lot of speculation, obviously, during this entire offseason. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. gave us that deadline date. Obviously, that was not a real deadline date, as Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has signed with the Toronto Blue Jays. I think there is going to be mixed emotions about this deal, especially early on in the season. People like to overreact. They see Vladimir Guerrero Jr. hasn't hit for the power throughout the first 10 games. And they say, hey, he's probably not worth that $500 million. And the biggest outlier for this contract is going to be, and the biggest complaint is going to be Vladimir Guerrero Jr. 14 years. That is a very long time for a contract. And you're right, 14 years is a long time for a contract, but you're not paying Vladimir Guerrero Jr. for his 37, age 38, age 39 season. You're paying Vladimir Guerrero Jr. for his prime years. You're paying for that 26 to 34 years of the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. contract. And I think if Vladimir Guerrero Jr. continues this upward trajectory, continues to build on what he has been doing, this should be a pretty good sign for the Toronto Blue Jays, and it just finally gives us some certainty. If this season did not go well, Vladdy could have been gone, Bo could have been gone. You have all these guys that still could be gone. There wasn't a future for the Toronto Blue Jays, and for the short term, the next couple of years would not have been very fun to watch whatsoever, especially without a superstar on the franchise. Now Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is locked up, and I'm excited to see him finish his career with the Toronto Blue Jays.
We got the wine. We got the champagne out. The first major signing, Toronto Blue Jays history. Wow, what a day to be here, Carter. And as if that we're just ready to go live. I know, like you said, there are people that are going to be upset by this. We have Dallin Wilton, Skylar Peters ready to join the live right away. We're going to talk about some of your guys' comments throughout the show today. Man, it is here. I could not be more excited. I know that me and you went back and forth on this throughout the whole offseason until now. Will they, won't they? It's like the Ross and Rachel effect of the Toronto Blue Jays. And here we finally are. It was a long time coming. I think in our heads, we knew that this was probably going to be the outcome. Vlad wants to be here. The Toronto Blue Jays want him. The fan base wants him. Besides, I guess, some of you in our comment section that don't, which is just wild to me. But here we are. No better place to be. I'm going to continue to try to get some posts out, some tweets out, Carter. Take it from here. The boys will be in here joining us right away. I will get you a glass of the champagne right away. For the first time, we're actually able to pop it. So congratulations, my friend.
See, I think we might have to be open about this champagne bottle. I don't think this was originally meant for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I think this might have been meant for, Shohei Ohtani, Juan Soto, Roki Sasaki as we go down the list. But hey, I'm more than happy for drinking it for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Gonna bounce into some of the comments here just to see the reactions from the people early on. He's inconsistent. What's up, guys? Nice to see you live. Wanted him traded. Didn't think it was wise to give a first baseman 14 years. Good thing about the first base that there's a very easy transition to that DH position, and first base is probably the least physically demanding position on the defense. So I think Vladdy will be able to play there for the foreseeable future. I don't think there's a lot of concerns about the defense declining too hard at first base. This is one of the, again, I don't know how you can't be excited, at least for, the next 8 to 10 years. Maybe you're not excited for the last 4 years of that contract, but look at George Springer, for example. We had a guy who's 35 years old, who everyone was writing off, still having a very productive season. Again, small sample size and 10 games into the season, but you can produce when you are older. Paul Goldschmidt had an MVP caliber season when he's 34 years old. So it's not completely out of the question, as we have another comment here. A lot of elite hitters are still pretty good hitters into their late 30s. And that can definitely be done by Vladimir Guerrero Jr. A lot of insiders, a lot of analysts have predicted that he will age very well. You have these exit velocity numbers that are absolutely popping off the charts. 115 miles per hour off the bat, touching 120 miles per hour off the bat. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., as much as Mark Shapiro might not want to say he's generational, I think he is a generational talent. I am so happy he is with the Toronto Blue Jays. Should be a very exciting feeling, and it's just nice to not have this whole cloud of, is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. signing? Is he going to the Boston Red Sox? Is he going to the New York Mets? We already saw that storyline developing as he was talking to the Juan Soto's, Brendan Nimmo in the outfield, Lindor. It's going to be nice to just be able to focus on Toronto Blue Jays baseball and focus on the 2025 season. But Vladdy is going to be your generational, hitting 3 in this order, 2, 3, 4 for the next 10 seasons. Now it's going to be an interesting discussion that we're going to have. Where does Bo Bichette fit into this? Do they sign Bo Bichette right after Vladimir Guerrero Jr.? Are they going to wait for Bo Bichette to finish out the season with the uncertainty that he is bringing into 2025? Is Bo Bichette a part of the future, a part of the plan with Rogers? Obviously, the main focus was Vladimir Guerrero Jr. for the longest time. Now that is out of the way, where do they pivot to now? Do they go to Bo Bichette? Do they try to get some more prospects to surround Vladimir Guerrero Jr.? Now that they've signed Vladdy, you got to assume that this team does not want to go into a rebuild or not a full-on rebuild. If anything, there might be a retooling. But it really is still going to depend on how 2025 does transpire. Is this a playoff team? Do they have to sell at the trade deadline? But we do finally have some certainty. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is staying on the Toronto Blue Jays. This guy, again, only 25 years old, turning 26 this season. A lot of time ahead of Vladimir Guerrero Jr., a lot of time to see what he can do for the Toronto Blue Jays. One thing that we're going to see a lot of as well is this playoff stat line. I think he's 3 for 22 in the playoffs. It's not just Vladimir Guerrero Jr. that wasn't hitting well in the playoffs. It's not just an individual sport once you get to the playoffs. Everyone throughout the Toronto Blue Jays lineup was not producing in the run department. When you sign Vladdy, you're signing a $500 million contract. Obviously, you do want that to be a main focal point of your offense. But I think once you get the experience, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. only having about 5 to 6 games under his belt, I think experience will be a massive thing for the Toronto Blue Jays team. But you do have to get to the playoffs to gain that experience. So there's going to be a bunch of different perspectives, a bunch of different narratives that are coming out. I think the side that we're on, the side that we hope a lot of Toronto Blue Jays fans are on, especially right now in the moment where this just happened 10 minutes ago, you want to be excited about it.
Yeah, man. Again, going back and forth over this the whole time, I think at the end of the day, everybody, as much as it's either you're completely for it or completely against it, I think the big thing is it's done now. Now it's baseball, and it's not this dark cloud hanging over this Toronto Blue Jays team. It's Vlad is planning to be here. Anthony Santander you still have for 2 more years after this one. Yes, Bo Bichette, to me, has to be this next piece. And I see some more comments from you guys coming in that are saying, what about Bo? What about Bo? What's going to happen? Are they going to sign Bo now? I think that's absolutely the next move that has to happen. You have to lock down a core because that allows this organization to then go and build around them some more. Just again, if you guys have missed it, Carter or Dallin Wilton, Skylar Peters will join the show right away. I'm working, getting a bunch of tweets and posts and everything out. Carter's been doing a fantastic job. We are going to talk way more about this. Skylar Peters joins us right now. Welcoming into the show, big guy. How pumped are you? Do you got the champagne out or what?
I am fired up, boys. I couldn't find a way to hang the jersey on top of the unfortunate placard from 2015. I had to take the sleep mask off and put a shirt on. And there's nowhere I'd rather be on a Sunday night than doing this with you boys. What a great evening. And Shai Davidi staking his claim for the Twitter bomb of the year at 12:14 p.m. Eastern. Well done.
Yeah, as if that guy's doing that to the people, this late in the night. But it's a crazy bombshell, the biggest bombshell, obviously, in Toronto Blue Jays history. The narrative has been starting. Did this save the weekend? This saved the Toronto Blue Jays weekend after getting swept by the New York Mets?
How can we get Vladdy's bat going is the next question we can start asking.
What's so funny is we were just recording tomorrow's podcast. We finished it up. I'm in the middle of editing everything. And Carter goes, we might have to go live here. And I'm just complaining about how the bats weren't waking up. Nothing was going the Blue Jays' way this weekend in some games that were there for the taking, for the win. They just couldn't pull it out. And we talked about the dark cloud hanging over this team of will this contract happen? I think you're feeling great about this weekend now.
The bats weren't working, but the pens certainly were in some office in Toronto. And Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro have bought themselves some more time. It was obviously the thing that has hung over the head of the franchise, really like since the 2021 talks broke down. And this season loomed for both him and Bo Bichette, and now at least maybe 60% of that equation's off the table. I just pulled this up while I was waiting to come in the studio too, boys. How many players do you think were drafted by the Blue Jays and played more than 1,100 games all with the team in their Major League Baseball career? How many players do you think that is?
Just as a generalization, maybe like 10, 15, somewhere in there.
Don't do it to me.
It is.
Two?
I started with 1,000, and there were 7. Okay. And 1,100 cuts out Aaron Hill and Russ Adams, Angry Jays legends, and it's 5. Joe Carter, Robbie Alomar, John Olerud, Sean Green, and Carlos Delgado, and now in a couple of seasons, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. will join that list, and hopefully we never see him play in another jersey in the rest of his MLB career.
I mean, that's what you hope for. I mean, at any point, you want Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to be with this franchise, until he decides no longer to play in the MLB. And I think what's the great part about all this is that that's what we're getting to see. We're getting to see a player that, how often do you see this anymore? I mean, you look at hockey, basketball, football, whatever it is. How many players are there from the moment that they get drafted or the moment they, start in the MLB until the moment they're done? It honestly is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen Shohei Ohtani obviously is on his second team. Guys like Francisco Lindor. Lots of superstars move in this league, and this is something very rare. And I think, in Toronto's market and being the only Canadian team and being a cold weather city for, the bookends of the season for the most part, there's a lot of things working against this team. And this is a massive, massive win for the franchise and automatically money well spent.
Well, and this is going to be one of those deals that is going to end up boding very well for the Toronto Blue Jays in the future. Probably not up to like the Shohei Ohtani level. This is going to be a guy that is going to put butts in seats for an extended period of time. People are going to go to the Rogers Center just to see Vladimir Guerrero Jr. play baseball for the Toronto Blue Jays. And Blue Jays Muse tweeted something out, and it's not going to come to a surprise to anyone, but he went over since 2019 the production from some of the Toronto Blue Jays players, going over who has the most hits, home runs, extra base hits, two baggers, highest OPS, highest OBP. Every single one is Vladimir Guerrero Jr., believe it or not. This guy is the real deal. Obviously, we've seen it in front of our eyes. I'm just so excited to see where this could, like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. could go, how his career could end up turning out. Hopefully, we do get a few playoff wins under the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. era. And the biggest question is going to be what next? What is next for Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins? What's next for this roster? What's next for Bo Bichette? What's this team's direction going to be coming up for the near future. Braden, are you ready to take a little bit of a break here? Or do you still need some time, to kind of figure some things out?
No, you know what? I'm good to go. I think everything's posted. Everything is how it is. How is it sounding for everybody that is watching the show? Hopefully it's all good to go for you. Still waiting for Dallin Wilton to join the show. He'll get on here right away as well. Give us his thoughts and opinions. But yeah, Carter, let's let's take it a couple more minutes just for the people, and then we'll take a quick break, come right back. But I think when you think of this deal, Carter, we just got another text here. Bo is going to want north of 350 to 400 million, depending on the year he has. Where do you slot in Bo now that Vlad signed and everybody's saying they want Bo? What is his price range? I don't know if it touches the 300 million, to be honest with you.
The only way it gets close to 300 million, I think Bo Bichette, he's going to be a top 3 hitter in the AL. He's got to have like an 830 OPS. Like, we got to really see that 2022 Bo Bichette, the 2021 Bo Bichette. He's got to have a season very similar to that. Even if he does have that caliber of season, I don't know if he's getting that 350 million just based off of some of the contracts we have seen in the past. I think he would easily supersede that Willy Adames contract, 7 years, about 180 million. I would see it being closer to about 250 million. I think when you have Vladdy Guerrero Jr. locked up for 14 years, I don't think they'd go over 10 for Bo Bichette. But I do think they'd want to obviously sign him for a longer term deal. I think it would be like an 8-year deal, maybe a 9-year deal. 8 to 10 years, somewhere in there. I think now that you do sign Vladdy Guerrero Jr., you probably do want to get Bo Bichette. They talked about how much they want to play together. They want to spend their entire careers together. That makes the most sense logically, but we'll have to see where Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins do decide to go and if they have any other influence from the front office.
I got to put something out there. Sorry, Skylar, before we continue. There were so many posts over the weekend of Vladdy warming up with the Mets and talking to them and drumming it up and whatever. And everybody's like, oh, that's where he's going. That's where he's going. And they dropped this bombshell on Sunday. How good does that feel?
Like, how does that even work? Like, they just signed Pete Alonso. Like, I know New York sports fans are delusional, but yeah. And that was the thing. Like, and we said it in the season preview episode. This is the first road series for the Jays. And every time they go on the road, this was going to happen. And to get this taken care of, before the first week of April is even done, after this, deadline of February 18th, that's less than 2 months ago. And it's already, passed and the ink is now drying on this deal. We're basically just waiting for the team to make this official is such a huge thing. It's going to be a weight off the shoulders of Vlad, obviously, for the rest of this season, the rest of the team. Maybe it puts a little bit more pressure on Bo Bichette as, all the focus kind of shifts to him. But I think it can only be a good thing as far as this season's concerned for the Jays too. And I was just going to say on the shortstop situation, while we're still talking about Bo, there's 3 MLB contracts for shortstops in league history that are over $300 million. Trey Turner was rated at 3, 2023 deal. He signed with Philly. He was 29. Corey Seager, 325. He was 27 when he signed, which is how old Bo Bichette is now. And then obviously Lindor was 341, signed that at age 28. But Carlos Correa, guy that won a World Series with Houston, signed with the Minnesota Twins at 28. $200 million total value. It's average annual value of 33.3. It was an 8-year deal. So, adjusted for inflation, it would be more than that if you're comparing those 2 contracts for Bo. But, somewhere in between 2 and 3 is like a reasonable ask from his camp. And, I think the Blue Jays can now think long and hard about whether they're willing to give Bo that number.
Yeah. Just to throw this out there, anybody in the comment section, drop your thoughts and comments down below. We will continue to look back at some of them and see, what kind of points you guys bring up when it comes to, the talking points around all of this. Is this going to affect Bo? Will it affect other contracts? Does this now push this organization forward in trying to make other big signings to really bolster this lineup in this 2025 season? And I'm sorry if I sound a little stuffed up, still a little sick, but I'm, battling through this right now. I know it's been like 5 days, I swear to God. But what a day, Carter. You know what? I was going to say, let's take a break, but there's so many people in here right now that are, spitting their opinions and dropping us comments. So I think let's continue it going. I guess other thoughts and feelings. Does this push the Toronto Blue Jays to now go and make more decisions on signing guys, trading players? The window now is extended, right? Your window was this year. Now, how much longer do you got, right? You got Santander for 2 more. You got Bo Bichette for right now. Vladdy for 14. To me, this seems like an organization that's going to be in the running for the next 10 years, or trying to be.
Yeah, being in the running and trying to be are definitely different examples. But Santander, with that, the first opt-out is after 3 years, so you still have him for a while. You got to think it's Bo Bichette. But now with the contract, you hand out one $500 million contract. It's going to be interesting to see how this does impact the Toronto Blue Jays spending habits. They are 5th in the league in payroll right now, but you can't expect one team to hand out multiple $500+ million contract offers. Again, is there enough players, be worth $500 million in the league? I don't think Bo Bichette's quite there. But you do have, again, some guys coming off the books. You have Chris Bassett coming off the books. You have Zach Gallen, who's going to be available next year. Dylan Cease, Michael King, as we talked about throughout this offseason. If you're going to be competitive and you want to extend this window, you can't just do it with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. You do have some guys that you hope that will supplement Vladdy, but you're going to have to go out and make some signings in free agency. So I think an interesting thing to monitor, obviously you can't really do much of it during this season, but for next offseason is how they do approach free agency. Are they going to go out and try to make some massive signings? Are they going to be a little bit more conservative now that they do have a $500 million player inked for the contract on the Toronto Blue Jays? With this signing, you got to think that they're going more towards now a win now mentality compared to like we're going to try to completely rebuild. But I think a lot of it still depends on how this season does play out.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what happens. I think a trade now, again, you're gonna have to see and wait and see how this season itself plays out. But there isn't that immediate deadline, and they have some time to think over their moves. And Carter, there was a comment. I got to look back at it because it perked my ears up. So good for you. And when I can find it, I will say it. But it was about Ross Atkins, Mark Shapiro. Does this save their jobs? And as much as we all maybe want to say no, here Toronto 6393 says this. As much as maybe we don't want to say it does. It probably does, right? I don't see a world in which they get fired after this season. Now, I don't know how, even if this season falls off the cliff, if these guys don't have jobs going into next year.
Well, so I would counter that and ask why would you say you don't want that to save their job? Wasn't this objective number one? The objective's done. And I think we all kind of agreed that at the end of the offseason, at the start of spring training, that, outside of a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. contract extension, it was a pretty good offseason for the Toronto Blue Jays. Like they addressed some of their biggest needs, especially on offense. They got some lefty bats. They got an elite defender in Andres Jimenez. The pitching staff is still solid. It's something they built up over the years. The bullpen is decent. They made some good additions there, and they've turned out so far decently well, except for that Saturday game against the Mets, obviously. But I don't see any reason why. Like, I feel like this is just the biggest gripe that, everyone in the fire Shapiro, Atkins resign camp was because they were going to let their two superstars walk. And it just seemed like this impending doom that was inevitable. And now it's not. And we've shown that with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And regardless of what happens or does not with Bo Bichette, I do feel like this buys them some time and buys them a lot of goodwill with Jays fans. And, I'd be shocked to see if the form of public opinion doesn't change over the next couple of weeks, regardless of the team's performance on the field.
Yeah, I could agree with you. I think my only caveat to that point, because I agree, I think at the end of the day, we're asking these guys to do their jobs, and there might have been a 2-season lapse where I didn't love what was going on. But at the end of the day, they did exactly what I asked for them. I asked for Santander. They got Santander. I asked for bullpen help. They signed Jeff Hoffman. They bring back Amy Garcia. They add Andres Jimenez. And we said it was a B+ offseason. The only thing that could have made it better was a Vladdy signing. And here we go. We got it. So if it's not an A+ now offseason, quote unquote, I don't know what to say. My only gripe is that there hasn't been a playoff win. But do I put that on the coaching staff and the managers and the front office, or do I put that on the players? And I think it's a little bit of both. So I would agree with you. I don't necessarily know where this leaves the fan base in terms of Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro, because I think there will be some that still call for his head. And to be honest with you, I think either way you land on this following this deal, I can understand. because I can understand going how many years of, the window and not winning a playoff game. And there was questionable years when it comes to these two guys. And now you make the big signing, you do everything we're asking you to do. So I don't know. It's a little bit of both, I guess.
Well, I'll take you back to the Mariners wildcard series. Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins, when the postseason starts, their job is officially done. Sit in the suite and watch. And what we watched happen in game 2 of that series has nothing to do with the jobs that Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins did, leading up to that season, throughout the season with the additions they made, especially around the trade deadline. This season, that book's still yet to be written, of course. But I think, now the eyes are going to shift a lot to, John Schneider, Charlie Montoyo before him, obviously, and the management that have been in place, since 2016. And then, the players on the field got to go play. They got to live up to these dollar numbers. And Vladdy obviously has the biggest one. So, there is some pressure on him now in a much different way than there was pressure before.
See, I'm kind of in the middle with what you guys both said. I think once you get to the playoffs, I agree with the part where Ross Atkins, Mark Shapiro, they have done their job. Once you get to the playoffs, you can't expect Ross Atkins to go in the box and hit those bombs. But at the end of the day, though, Ross Atkins' job is to set this team up for success. If there is glaring holes on this team, for example, I think they still could use a power bat. I think if they want to be competitive, they think they're going to make a deep playoff run. I don't think you're going to be able to do that with Andres Gimenez hitting in the 4 spot. I think you have another guy that is established, has some 20-plus home run seasons. I think that would be a move that they can make. So that's where I would argue that there is a little bit of responsibility on Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro, is they do have to make the roster competitive enough that if they do make the playoffs, they have to be able to compete with some of these teams. I'm not expecting them to match the Dodgers roster composition, because they have, a million all-stars on that team. They're breaking the bank with the payroll that they do have, but they got to put this team in a spot where they can be competitive, and they do have the talent on the team to at least give other teams a run for their money in a playoff scenario.
Well, and just quickly, we watched the Cleveland Guardians give up basically on Andres Gimenez because they're, one of the cheapest teams in the league. And the guy's 27, and, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's on pace to hit about 70 nukes this year. So you're going to get a lot more than 20 from him batting in the 4 spot right now. And that's like a window extending type of move. Like his defense will probably never drop off, at least not in the foreseeable future. And maybe his best offensive years are ahead of him. Certainly he's had the best start to his career, so far through 10 games for the Toronto Blue Jays. And remember, a guy like Dalton Varsho was hitting the cover off the ball in spring training. He's still coming back to this lineup at some point. So we would have loved some name recognition and maybe a brand booster for the Jays in the 4 spot. But as the team is currently constructed, I don't see a whole lot of issue with the way this is going, at least offensively.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. And that's the tough part is that I can sort of see where everybody's coming from on both sides of this topic. And I look at the moves made, and I look at this season, and I think this was the best the Jays could have done from getting from 2024 into being a more complete baseball team in 2025. So it is pretty interesting. And we're going to talk more about this, Carter. Let's take a quick break. Let's hit a quick ad break. We'll be like a minute and a half, 2 minutes. Stick around. Make sure you guys stay tuned. This is our Monday episode as well. So those of you who are in here and watching, this will be it for Monday. We did a whole series.
Monday 2.0.
Yeah. We've already recorded one. Me and Carter have been doing this for like an hour and a half already, 2 hours. So let's continue it on, though. If I have to do 10 hours and they sign Vlad.
Wait till the Bo extension comes in about 30 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. All right. We'll be right back. We're going to take a quick break. Stick around in 2 seconds. Today's episode brought to you by Just Ingredients. Those of you guys know that watch the podcast a lot, I'm a big fan of Just Ingredients because they're my go-to protein. They're my go-to pre-workout because they do such a good job, and they are a clean protein. When it comes to fueling your body, quality matters. That's why Just Ingredients is changing the game with clean, high-quality products designed to support better health and peak performance. Just Ingredients offers an NSF-certified line of protein powder, electrolytes, pre-workout, and creatine, all rigorously tested to ensure they're free from substances banned by major athletic organizations. Just Ingredients also is partnered with 2-time MVP Bryce Harper, who trusts their NSF-certified line. Visit justingredients.us and use code LOCKEDONMLB for 20% off. And for more wellness tips, follow @JustIngredients on Instagram.
Today's episode is also sponsored by Farm to Fork. If you're a fan of premium, locally farmed meats delivered straight to your door, I have some exciting news for you. Farm to Fork makes it easy to get all of your favorite proteins farm fresh with no antibiotics, hormones, or GMOs. Plus, everything comes out flash frozen and individually packaged for your convenience. All Farm to Fork meals are raised on Canadian farms, so when you order, you're supported by local producers. It's time to buy Canadian. Farm to Fork has bundles with everything you need. I'm talking beef, chicken, turkey, pork, lamb, seafood, everything you could possibly need to restock your supply. One of my favorite parts about Farm to Fork deliveries is that all their products are flash frozen, so it ensures top-notch quality, and they do have individually packaged meats, so you don't have to tear through your entire freezer to find what you're looking for. They're delivering all across Ontario and Western Quebec, and the best part, delivery is free with a minimum order of $199. You don't even have to leave the house to get this quality. I have a special code just for you. Use Locked On 40 to get $40 off your first order at Farm to Fork. Visit farm2forkdelivery.ca to start stocking up on the best meats around. Again, that is Locked On 40 for $40 off your first order at farmtofork.com and for delicious locally farmed meats delivered straight to your door.
All right, boys, I've got to just pour myself another one here. Celebrate, Skylar, I'm surprised you don't got beer in hand. I'm surprised you didn't have money on the game or on the Vladdy signing tonight. I thought you'd be like right there making bank. Oh, sorry. Hold on. You're muted. One sec.
That was me. That was me. I made a quick water run, actually. I was in bed. I try to get to bed by about 10 p.m. Mountain on weeknights. And then this came down.
Not today.
No. That's fine. We can go to the gym another day tomorrow. It's all good. I actually put some cash on the Yankees run line today, and then the Pirates won that one in extras. So I was battling back, made some money on the pucks. But this is all just emotional. This is emotional well-being right here. This feels good, boys. Money can't buy this. Well, money bought this, but it's not my money.
Well, it is. All your phone payments are going directly to Vlad now. You can just e-transfer them.
Yeah, a couple zeros difference between Vladdy and I's average annual salary, that's for sure. But hey, it makes me just as happy as it's making him right now. I bet you that.
Oh, I could not imagine the party that is going on their way to Boston right now. Davis Schneider's so pumped up. He's hitting 9 nukes over the Green Monster tomorrow.
It'll be the when the Jays clinched the division in 2016 in that first game of the doubleheader. It'll be the same vibes as that tomorrow. I don't know if I'll be putting my hard-earned cash on the Toronto Blue Jays tomorrow. We'll give them a day of grace.
Yeah. Stay off the betting sites when it comes to the Toronto Blue Jays. No, lot to talk about, guys. I mean, this is one of those episodes where we're just sort of all over the map. We will do a little tee up on the Red Sox coming tomorrow. Or today, I guess it will be for those of you watching this as the podcast in the morning. But at the end of the day, I'm just thrilled. This is something I honestly expected to happen. I said a few times before that deadline hit, I thought they were going to get it done. But then everybody was saying, oh, well, they didn't get it done. So I guess it's him. He's going to the off season. And I was like, that's probably not going to happen. There's going to be so many conversations in between times. Did I think that they were going to get it one done? I don't know, but I'm happy that the conversations continued and that we're here today. All the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. jerseys out there. My brother just got one for Christmas, and he came over to our Skylar shows his off. Yeah. And he came to our house wearing it the other weekend, and he goes, I don't know if I'm going to be able to wear this out in a year, so I got to get all the use out of it I can. Well, good investment on my parents' behalf, are the ones who bought it for him, I think. So, and hopefully the rest of you are just as happy not having to go and buy new Toronto Blue Jays jerseys.
It's about the only good investment you can make right now. I don't know if you guys have looked at your portfolio, but
it's not good.
No.
We try to stay out of the politics here,
Yeah, well, it's not politics. This is my life savings, boys. I don't care who did it. Did you guys talk about the number? I know I jumped on a couple of minutes in, but 500, 14 years. Yeah. We were kind of throwing around predictions a little bit. It was less than I thought. I'll say that. Whether or not the deadline provided leverage for Vladdy, I guess maybe we'll never know. Maybe we'll know at the end of his career or something like that. But it really didn't seem like it drove the price up a whole lot. Like the Jays had to kind of kick into this desperation gear and start throwing up numbers they weren't comfortable with, unless 500 was truly uncomfortable before the season starts, but it didn't feel like it should be for me, given what they were offering Juan Soto and Shohei Ohtani, obviously.
Yeah, I'm pretty shocked about the number, just because obviously that was what was reported over the past few days of 500 million, and we've had talks about it getting upwards of 600, right? And I thought it would have been closer to the 550, 540, somewhere in there, but at the end of the day, Vlad put out a quote, actually, and I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it was saying that if I was, an MVP this season or close to it, I'm worth 700 million. And at my lowest, I'm worth 500 million. So are you saying that now you're at your lowest and that's why this team's buying on you? Or is this just a lot of negotiation and realizing the market is set specifically, and for a first baseman, no matter how good you are, you're not going to make $650 million?
No, the rumor is that Vladdy hasn't hit a home run the first 10 games, so he lost 50 million. That's why they were able to reach a deal with that 500 million 14-year contract. But there has been a couple of comments, and I did want to bring this up as part of my own notes as well. Peter goes in and says Teoscar got screwed, 66 million. So with this Vladdy contract, 14 years, 500 million, we've seen a lot of contract extensions early on in the season. You see Jackson Merrill, a little bit of a different scenario because he still has arbitration years. Garrett Crochet getting extended, Ketel Marte getting extended as well. These guys not getting nearly as much as Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Is there a way that this contract doesn't work out very well for the Toronto Blue Jays compared to the other contracts going out? Do you think the Toronto Blue Jays, there could be a scenario that they get fleeced here? Or you think it might be the opposite with the way contracts are going? You always see these guys bidding to try to get a little bit more money than the other guy. Do you think this could be a bargain? Just overall, just the contract value. You think it's a good thing for the Toronto Blue Jays or a bad contract signing for the Jays?
Braden, you go. I'll go after you.
Yeah, it's tough. I don't think that this deal is going to be the make it or break it here. I don't think that, they're going to regret this. In no world do I think the Toronto Blue Jays regret this deal. I think you know exactly what you're going to get out of Vladdy. Yes, a little bit of inconsistency throughout the year, whatever you want to say. I think this is an absolute slam dunk. There will be no regret. The part that they might regret is, will they or won't they build enough around Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in the next coming years to succeed? And if this doesn't go as planned and they don't win, or at least do well, whatever you want to say, then I think as a fan base, you look back on it. But I don't think this would be the key factor in being disappointed next 10 years. I think it's going to be how this front office and how this group and this franchise build around Vlad. And I think that's more interesting to me than the actual deal itself, is now what is it pushing this front office to do for the next 10 years? Because now we're seeing if they're spending this much, they're committing to continually spending money on players moving forward to round out this team.
Yeah, I think that it's not going to hinder the Blue Jays in any sort of way financially. Like we've talked about this several times, but this ownership invested $500 million into the ballpark, and they want to put a good team in it. So now they invested $500 million in the best player available to them, who is already on their roster. So in terms of the net gains that you won't see like from Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s stat line, like Carter said, like attracting free agents, maybe convincing Bo Bichette to become a Blue Jay for life as well, those types of things. Hard to put a dollar value on it. And at the end of the day, he's still younger than Adley Rutschman, and it feels like some of these guys in the league just burst on the scene and they're the hot, like young player. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has played 815 career games and he's 27 years old. He was born in 1999, like I think that sometimes just gets overlooked because he has been in the league since 2019, I think it was when he made his debut. But, his best years are conceivably ahead of him. And I think that's really exciting for the Blue Jays. They're not locking up, capped out potential. I think the ceiling is still very, very high for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and hopefully many MVP votes in his future.
Well, we have Alan Roden on the team, who's a rookie. This guy's 25 years old. Vladdy
Yeah.
just turned 26 in March. We have rookies coming up, and Vladdy already has 6+ years of service time in the major leagues. So this contract is going to kick in when he is 27 years old. And for me, this all is based off of how much success do the Toronto Blue Jays have with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Because I said earlier on this episode, you're not paying this contract for the years where Vladdy's 39, where he's 40, where he's 41. You're paying for his prime years. You're paying for the years where he is going to be able to provide the best success he can on the baseball field. So if the Toronto Blue Jays win a few playoff series, if they make the World Series, if they win the World Series somehow, I think a lot of people are going to view this as a success. You sign Vladdy, you assume Vladdy is going to be a key piece in that World Series run. If you have some success, I don't think anyone is going to complain about the contracts that Ross Atkins, Mark Shapiro, this Toronto Blue Jays team is forking up. But if we have kind of the way it's been playing out throughout the 2020s and you don't get many playoff wins, you don't have any playoff success, I think that's where we're going to look back at this moment and there might be a lot of animosity towards the Toronto Blue Jays front office for the signing.
Carter, sorry, I got to jump in here because I saw just a hilarious comment and sort of it plays into a bigger conversation here. Bo should get the same contract because he's just as valuable as Vladdy. And he won't. Let's put that straight out there. Bo will not get close to what Vladdy just got. But I understand this comment. I think Bo is just as integral to the success of that will be the Toronto Blue Jays as Vladdy is. And they will be able to pay him a whole ton less. So I think that the next thing that Shapiro should do or Atkins should do is get Bo to get pen to paper right away and make that signing because those are two all-stars that you will need to have on this team to be successful.
Yeah, I would agree. Like it's all about positional value at the end of the day, and shortstops don't make $500 million. Trey Turner's not making half that. So, well, he is making half that. He's making $300 million. But ignore my math. I was in bed before. But yeah, I mean, now you have the opportunity, and I don't think you can look at these two contracts and compare them fairly side by side in terms of like if you looked at WAR per dollar or something like that. Because at the end of the day, if you spend $500 million on a shortstop when everyone else is spending $330 max, in the case of Francisco Lindor, then that's a bad deal for everybody. Well, except for Bo Bichette. So I just think now that the Blue Jays have got the big fish off the table and they can really get down to work with Bo Bichette, not that they weren't, like it's not like they had to put one thing before the other, but I wouldn't be surprised if, say, by July, maybe a Bo Bichette extension is here, although he seems pretty keen to test free agency, and that's kind of always been the sentiment compared to Vladdy's feelings as this deadline approached.
Yeah, I think he wants to be a Toronto Blue Jay and he wants to stay and play with Vlad and, be as well. Like if you have those two guys locked up for their entire careers, I mean, you're looking at a great 10 years to come for Blue Jays fans and as ball players, right? You know the city, you're a key piece to the city, to the fan base, to the team. It's just that I think Bo wants to go and see what his worth is. And I think that's a little bit the difference where I think Vlad always knew he just wanted to be the guy on billboards outside of Toronto. Whereas Bo just wants to be a great baseball player. He's not as much of a media guy. He keeps pretty quiet to himself. But I think now that Vlad's there, it really does boost the attractiveness of Toronto to Bo Bichette.
This Bo Bichette situation, like in terms of contract, is such a tough one for me to kind of like talk out because you have this last season where you like me and you, Braden, talked on the podcast about Bo Bichette and how we thought it was the most obvious bounce back candidate of all time because we've seen what Bo Bichette has done in the past. But you have this one down year, and it seemed like it made a lot of people forget just who Bo Bichette is, whether that's fans, whether that's just MLB teams. I'm not sure how MLB front offices are viewing Bo Bichette right now. I would assume it's closer to the way we are, with the consistent success we have seen from Bo Bichette. But I'd be interested to see how Bo Bichette kind of views himself. I think Vladdy always kind of knew, like you said, you brought up the quote he had about like the Juan Soto comparison, where at his best, he's around 700 million. At his worst, he's around 500 million. I think Vladdy always had a pretty good idea of how much he wanted to get in terms of free agency. When it comes to Bo Bichette, I think a team could pay him $300 million. He could somehow get like $175 million, depending on how this season goes and depending how other organizations view him. So I think with Bo Bichette, this season is obviously so integral to Bo Bichette and what he's going to get in the open market. And I think that is going to kind of play on if like how likely it is if he does come back to Toronto. But there is another free agent where I think it could be, I don't think this is realistic whatsoever, but it would be an awesome trade-off if they did do this. There's a guy in Chicago that's only going to be there for one more year, and he's becoming a free agent in 2026. Kyle Tucker and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. on the same team would do absolute numbers watching these guys 162 games a year.
God, wouldn't that be fun? That would be I guess you'd go 2, 3, 4 with those guys in Santander for the next couple of years.
And that scenario, Bo's probably gone. Like, I don't see a scenario where you get Tucker, Bo, and Vladdy. But I mean, if that's the trade-off they end up doing. So there is other options that they go away from Bo Bichette, and this team does have a lot of middle infielders that could, again, move up to that spot. Now you have Vladdy locked up. You have Arjun Namala in the system. Again, do you want to wait that long for a shortstop? There would be some short-term guys that you could go out and get. Maybe, you get like a Paul DeYoung type of player to, have a 1-year vet come in and just be serviceable until you get some of these young guys to come up. But I think with Bo Bichette, it's going to depend on if he plays himself out of their price range. I don't think the Blue Jays are going to hand out this massive contract where I think they're going to, for the 2026 season, I think they'd be more likely to allocate money to the starting pitching rather than Bo Bichette. So I think if they're going to pay out this $300 million contract, I think like a Zach Gallen would be a more realistic scenario than Bo Bichette. That's just for me, though. I think that's where the front office is. They much rather prioritize pitching and pay these pitchers, as we've seen in the past, than a guy like Bo Bichette.
Well, when I saw the Andres Jimenez trade, one of the things I thought that was kind of a hedge on Bo Bichette leaving, because he can switch to shortstop very easily. And I feel like it's easier to find a semi-productive second baseman, in terms of dollar value, than, a productive, the same level of productivity at the shortstop position. So I could realistically see that, kind of reshaping the infield if Bo does leave. And then, that opens more doors too. So you have a little bit of versatility there. And then when you talk about Arjun Namala, you don't have to rush the guy who's 19, 20 years old and, just in the developmental stages of his big league career.
Yeah, no, and that's a fair point, right? You talked about Arjun. I just saw a tweet from him or about him yesterday, actually, and how awesome he looks right now, and how it seems like high everybody is within the organization about him. So again, you're sort of right on the money with that. You don't want to rush him, but also it gives you options in the future. And the Andres Jimenez of it all is very interesting to see how that plays into the signing of Bo Bichette. And I don't know, this is just a very now weird situation for the Toronto Blue Jays, because you have 2-3 pieces, right? You have Andres Jimenez, you have Vlad, you have Santander for the next few years. Now it's put up or shut up. Hey, what can you bring here to make this team in the next few years a World Series contender? And there are a lot of routes you can go. I mean, you have to think that you probably need another starter for next year. You probably need 2 starters for next year. You probably need another 2 guys in the bullpen. You probably need another power bat, and that's maybe on top of Bo Bichette. So I don't know. I still think there's a lot of work to go to be a championship caliber team. But in the same respect, it's what can they do during this season as well, right? What are they going to do at the deadline? That's going to be a big question, because now you're not selling at the deadline, right? I don't care how this season goes. Who are you selling? There are a couple options. So, and not anybody worth really anything. It won't be a blockbuster deal. So I don't know. I'm very interested to see how this season continues, Carter. How are you thinking?
I think this team still would sell if somehow the season goes completely out the window and it is like a 2024. I just don't see them selling like a Bo Bichette. They do the same thing they do last year. Chris Bassett's gone. You have all those guys that are on these last year contracts that they would move on from. I think that's a scenario where we would see Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro, their job security being questioned. Is that if you do sign Vladdy Guerrero Jr., somehow you don't have a successful season. I think at that point still, you don't have these playoff wins. You don't have success at all whatsoever. I don't know how you justify bringing back Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro in that situation. Obviously, that would be worst case scenario. This team's selling at the deadline. You make this Vladdy Guerrero Jr. move. Everything points to you wanting to be competitive, you extending that window. There is going to be a scenario now that we will see Arjun Namala and Vladdy Guerrero Jr. play on the exact same team. It wouldn't make sense to sign Vladdy and then plan on just blowing it up and completely retooling. It doesn't really make sense in my head. It doesn't really make sense to you guys from the impression that I've got. Maybe it makes sense to some of the people listening to this. I don't think it would. The most logical thing ever is that you want to be the most successful baseball team and the best baseball team you possibly can be. So now at the trade deadline, the plan should be is to probably address the bullpen. You might get a left-handed guy, and maybe you do get a power bat. You have to see what the market is like at that time. But yeah, I don't think the plan would not be to sell in the perfect world. But I think if somehow they would be in a scenario where they're in that same spot as they were last year, I think it kind of forced your hand, but you would have to sell if you're 10 games under 500 at the trade deadline.
Yeah, and I just don't personally see the season going that way. Like, I think they're going to be competitive enough to be in the hunt, and they're not going to be a clear-cut seller at the trade deadline, which is I just don't see that happening for that reason. But I think the next 3 weeks are going to show us a lot about the Toronto Blue Jays, just given that beatdown of a schedule that we were talking about last week. So probably a lot to be determined. And the one thing I will say, like, I was just on defending Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins a whole lot, but the one thing missing, we keep talking about going out and getting guys. It's because the drafting and developing over the last 7-8 years just really hasn't been there in terms of the position. Well, really in positional players and the pitching. But, Arjun Namala is really the only guy where like casual Blue Jays fans can, have some name recognition with the guy in the system. They had 3 players in MLB Pipeline's top 100, which was like a high point over the last couple of seasons. Whereas you have a team like the Orioles, where some guys like Kerstad are going to have to go down because they just have too many of them. And that's the issue that the Blue Jays have found themselves in, and maybe they wouldn't have to look to acquire because somebody that they drafted, his time would come. Instead, we're waiting on Arjun Namala at 20 years old, who certainly looks like a promising player, but not one that you can count on for the next couple of seasons at the big league level.
Just moving forward here, we appreciate everybody that's watched the show, has tuned into the live streams. You guys know for any big event, anything like this happening, we will be live here. Skylar was nice enough to join us as well. We have a lot more to come this week. Obviously, the Red Sox, Blue Jays at Fenway playing the Red Sox. It should be a interesting series and an important one, as Skylar was saying. And to be honest with you guys, I have one more big question for you. We need to take a quick break. We will be right back, but it's a question that probably needs to be asked because of what was recently said. I'll leave you guys on that cliffhanger for when we come back right away. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. For those of you watching this on Monday morning, we appreciate you tuning in, and everybody tuning in for the live. There's nothing better than catching an MLB game live, the crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, the smell of ballpark food. And if you're looking to go last minute, Game Time makes getting tickets even easier than ever. With last minute deals, all-in pricing, and their lowest price guaranteed, Game Time takes the stress out of buying MLB tickets. Plus, ticket prices drop as Game Time gets closer, meaning you can score an incredible deal. I've done this a ton. I've gone from to the Yanks games, to the Jays games, to the Mets games, all of them last year. Just because Game Time is so affordable. And so when you're out there, it's not a stressful situation having to buy tickets. It's just like, oh, there's the best deal I can see. Great. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So, boys, as we continue on, I'm just going to go grab a water quick, but I'm going to leave you guys with this thought here for a quick second. We heard the Mets owner come out and say that you can't go and get everybody. You can't. There's just not enough money in the world to go and get this top guy and this top guy and that top guy. So, at what point now do the Blue Jays continue to spend? how much do the Blue Jays continue to spend in the next few seasons? That's got to be the big question. The big focal point now is how do they supplement and complement Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So I'm going to leave you guys with that just quickly while I run, just because my throat's killing me. I'm still a little sick here. So I'll leave you guys with that. I'll be right back.
Yeah, I'll jump in this one to start. With the payroll that we've seen over the last few seasons, the Toronto Blue Jays have typically been around the top 10 in payroll. Again, that's the luxury tax that goes up every single year. So right now, I believe the payroll is at around $235 million a year. That is good for 5th in the major leagues. With this Vladimir Guerrero Jr. signing, if you're going to have success, you can't sign a million players that for $35-40 million a year. You're going to have to go out and sign these supplementary guys, maybe take some more chances on these guys that aren't as established, maybe younger players. Like, you're going to have to get the supplementary players to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. You're probably going to have to add another piece, whether that's the Bo Bichette signing, where you go out and you get a Kyle Tucker, you go out and get somebody else that is a bigger name to help Santander, to help Vladdy if you want to make a deeper playoff run. But I think, like, you're not going to go out and you're not going to sign 2 $500 million deals. Vladdy is going to be the highest payroll guy on the Toronto Blue Jays, probably for the next 10, 15 years. Probably that whole contract we see is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is going to be at the top of that pay scale. So it's going to be interesting to see, and I think a lot's going to be revealed in this upcoming offseason, whether it's Mark Shapiro, Ross Atkins, or a different GM at the helm, how they decide to go on and do this spending. But I think that the Toronto Blue Jays, with this move, counting out that $500 million contract when their highest previous contract was $150 million, I think that is a big showing that the Toronto Blue Jays are prepared to spend in the future.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, I don't think this inhibits them from, or prohibits them from, getting one or two, large players, like big signings. But I do think what, Blue Jays fans probably will have to get used to are guys like Miles Straw or Alan Roden, like playing regularly and getting regular at bats for the Toronto Blue Jays. Like, another, cost-effective way that this team could improve was Alek Manoah comes back and bounces back. Because his value, in arbitration is not going to be very high in seasons moving forward as well. For, a player that was a first-round pick, even that, like, just with the injuries and the performance and everything that's going on, if he can bounce back and outplay his contract value, that allows you the flexibility to maybe go get the Kyle Tuckers of the world, like Carter was mentioning. So to say that this is like the biggest signing in Blue Jays history, obviously it is. It is by like 3 times if you're looking at dollar value alone. But I don't think that the Jays are done with big signings, whether it's Bo Bichette or it's some external free agent maybe in the 2025 offseason.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you guys more here. I think this sets now the tone.
Did you even hear what we said? You were grabbing water.
Listen,
he's got big ears, man. He can hear from miles away.
That's right. I cover him up. with these headphones all the time that people don't get to
satellite
see.
Dishes over there.
Well, I hear Carter yelling. I feel bad for Justin in the other room. Like, holy.
It's not every day that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. signs a 14-year contract extension.
No, that's true. That's true. So, no, I was hearing you guys all the way out, and I could have walked outside 4 blocks down the road, and I would have heard you guys. And I couldn't agree with you guys more. What this does now is it sets a precedent for what this organization is going to be moving forward. And that is a team that's willing to spend to win and willing to get those pieces to surround them with. And you have to. You have to now. You can't let Vlad's contract go by the wayside. You don't get these players that come around very often that turn into these franchise players. It just doesn't happen. So at this point, you need to invest everything you have into building a winning team and a winning culture in Toronto. So, yeah, it is the big question. And how much can you spend? Yes, you're not going to be able to go out and spend on 14 million guys, but it's getting the right guys now that can do the job. And is Bo Bichette the right guy? Personally, I believe so. But he can't be the only right guy. It can't be the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette show for the next 10 years. You're going to need the guys that come in and hit 25 bombs as an addition. You need the guys that are going to come in and get you how many have X amount of wins, X amount of saves for the next 10 years. So I don't know. It's going to be super interesting. I don't know if you can be more excited as a Toronto Blue Jays fan, because what this organization just told you is we are ready to be competitive for the next 10 plus years.
Yeah, I think just given all of the discourse around these 2 looming contracts expiring, this last offseason with Bo and Vladdy, And I believe it's Edward Rogers is the name of the gentleman that, kind of runs the Rogers Blue Jays partnership.
Yeah.
And, his involvement in the Juan Soto sweepstakes, the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes, the personal pitch to Vladdy are all things that have been reported. I don't think Edward was, just going to put up his hands tonight. Okay, we signed Vladdy. That's it. Go play ball, guys. I think he understands that there needs to be a team built around your franchise player too. So, and for that reason, I don't think the Blue Jays should be shying away from marquee free agents in the future, or taking a big swing on their own guy, Bo Bichette.
I think the Jays have seen what like the Yankees have done, how they just haven't gone under 500 in the last million years. They just continue to be a successful team. They continue to be competitive. The Los Angeles Dodgers, again, doing it in a little bit different of a way. But these teams are kind of going away from the traditional rebuild, and they're really just going all in. They're signing these big free agents. And it's no secret that Rogers has money. Edward Rogers is one of the top 3 highest he has the highest net worth, top 3 in the league for your highest net worth. There you go. That's what I was trying to get to. So he obviously has money. He obviously has the ability to pay out some of these contracts. And I think when you go out and you do make this signing, I think that is it's showing kind of what's in store, what is going to come for this Toronto Blue Jays organization. But I do have one more thing before we do head out. And at what point do we start rolling out these like 2039 lineup projections for the Toronto Blue Jays? Like, we got Vladdy there. We got Orelvis Martinez, a steroid baby, probably in the lineup somewhere.
Vernon Wells Jr.
Yeah. At what point are we starting to
Kevin Biggio the third?
Yeah. All I know, boys, is I'm in a show of solidarity with our baseball club. I'm upgrading my phone plan from the 50 gig to the 100 gig of data, even though I only use like 16. You know what? If that helps, it's every little bit. Everyone's got to row the boat here, and we're in a unique situation as Blue Jays fans where we can help line the pockets of Edward Rogers and put a winning baseball team on the field.
That's
at
right.
Rogers Center.
That's right. We signed up with Shaw because that's the package I got through work. And now Rogers is with Shaw.
Yeah.
So here we go.
Yeah.
I'm already doing. I was helping even when I wasn't meaning to help.
This show is being brought to you by Rogers because I'm on the same deal. So it's great.
That's right. Yeah.
You get every channel. It's awesome.
Yeah. The chorus deal. Yeah. It's, hey, here's a bunch of channels and Wi-Fi. Stay with us. Okay.
Get ready for a 200% increase on our bills after this signing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That deal's going away right after this. Ton more to come this week. It's going to be interesting. I'm hoping maybe we'll try to get you back on since you're sort of in the vicinity of where we live. So
in the arena this weekend, gentlemen. Looking forward to chatting with you on or off air, whatever may happen.
Yeah, we're going to. We'll get together. It'll be a good time. That's what I'll say. I'll leave it there. Big week to come. Obviously, the Toronto Blue Jays Boston Red Sox series. Little bit of preview. Carter, do you still have the starters pulled up since we're not going to be releasing the 45-minute episode we just did before this?
Well, do you want to throw that out like instead of the Vladdy stuff that we were talking about? Do you want to like kind of just cut the first part out and just throw it out like later on in the day maybe? Because we already have it recorded. We were just going over the Mets series. We went over that Red Sox series. It's up to you. We can do it here again, but I figure, we might as well have that just sent to the people. We got it recorded, right? So,
you know what? I could do that. The only problem is I don't know if I'll be able to get it up tonight. It's a great question.
We'll
just go over them in case. Yeah, go over.
Yeah, we'll go over them here just in case. But we were just obviously recording our podcast, assuming like we didn't have the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. news, but we did see it picking up. We saw Jeff Passan, the Mike Rodriguez, the Hector Gomez was even in there. We saw a bunch of storylines regarding the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. stuff. So then obviously we decided that we wanted to talk about it. So I'm going to go off the dome because I'm trying to pull it up and I'm just, making every single punctuational mistake I possibly demand. But I believe it's Ryan Fitz against Easton Lucas for that first game. Then you have Garrett Crochet against Jose Barrios for the second game, Tanner Houck and Kevin Gossman for that third game. And I believe it's Chris Bassett and Walker Buehler for that fourth game. Hopefully I got that right. Pretty sure I did. Just, being dialed in with the ball knowledge as I always am. But yeah, Toronto Blue Jays 4-game series against the Boston Red Sox after coming off of a series sweep against the New York Mets. Can we win one game? Is that what we're going for? Maybe two? We're reaching out there pretty far.
Carter, you know what I said because we've done this now twice. I said I accept nothing less than a 3-1 series win for the Toronto Blue Jays, and that's just because game one. I mean, everybody's going to be. You might see guys throwing up on the field. They're going to be still hungover after celebrating. So
yeah, total for tomorrow's games currently set at 8.5. And while we're doing that, the money line, Boston Red Sox are -130 favorites. But between all the heavy heads in the Blue Jays locker room tomorrow, and the Red Sox using up all of their runs in an 18-2 or whatever, I turned it off. I went for a walk. It was on Sunday Night Baseball. It was just hard to watch knowing the Jays are coming to town. But they're drubbing of the Cards tonight. It could be 2-rip. I don't know who's going to win, but it might be 2-0. I might hammer the under. We'll see.
In classic Toronto Blue Jays fashion, it will be a 2-1 finish, and the Blue Jays will have given up. Somebody will boot a ball into the stands in left field for the.
We had a good 40 minutes of optimism. It's time to get back on track here.
Back to where we should be. Always appreciate everybody tuning into the show. It has been an absolute blast of an evening. I mean, there's nothing more I would rather do on my Sunday night than celebrate a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. extension with the two guys that know Blue Jays baseball better than anybody. Skyler is already calling it a night. See you later. See you later. Appreciate you hopping on as always, Peters.
Pleasure, boys.
Carter,
let's do it again. Let's do it again with Bo next week. How about that?
Yeah. Carter, you're sort of mandated.
Even if it happens Sunday night, I'm still there.
That would be filthy. I would be very sore. I got 2 socials this weekend, so
yeah,
it's gonna be a rough.
Yeah,
one.
next
and
time.
you got that early shift on the Monday too. I thought my 8 a.m. flight back to Calgary was bad, but woof, be a good day for a Celsius anyway.
I feel like they might be testing the limits of us on this podcast here. They tried for us, at 11 o'clock. Maybe they'll go for like a 2 a.m.er, just testing how much we really are committed to the grind with Shy, obviously releasing this information late, but hey, better late than never. Obviously, anytime throughout the night, any point of the day, we're going to be excited to celebrate a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. extension, the biggest extension in Toronto Blue Jays history, and the 3rd biggest extension in Major League history. Ton more to come to you guys.
We've done emergency pods for a lot less, boys. That's for sure.
That is for sure. Absolutely. We almost did one for Zach Pop getting DFA'd. So, I mean, the least we can do is do one for Vladdy. But thank you guys for watching, and we will talk to you guys again tomorrow.
Zach